We know that the order of operations is that when you are performing an operation on a number, first you do anything within parentheses, then you do exponents, then you multiply and divide, whichever comes first, left to right, then you add and subtract, whatever comes first, left to right. So I purposely wrote it in the correct order of operations. Let's start with the first one. I'm thinking of a number. My number, after I multiplied by 3, and then I subtracted 5 from it, I get 31. What is my number? Attention to that.
Is whatever, if you're doing subtracted by 5, that's going to be that's going to be the step before.
That's the last step you did. The last step you did was subtract 5. And so, exactly like Dylan said, in order to figure out what number I was at before I subtracted 5, I have to add 5 to it. So you add 5 and you get 36. Good.
And then 36 divided by whatever number is left. So that's 36 divided by 3 equals 5.
Nice. So 36 was whatever I had that multiplied by 3. And so therefore, in order to get backwards, I'm going to divide by 3. So you notice that the order in which you perform the operation, multiply by 3, subtract 5, gave you that 31. So in order to find the number you started with, you've got to work with what is called, what kind of operations? Inverse operations. You're working backwards in reverse order. PEMDAS says parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, then add, subtract. So adding and subtracting is the last thing I do, which means it's the first thing I undo. So I'm going to add and subtract to undo. So if I minus 5, I'm going to add 5 to undo that minusing. And then if I multiply by 3, I'm going to divide by 3 to undo it. So you're absolutely right. The number is 12. My mystery number, I divided by 5 because division comes before addition, and then I added 2, and it gave me -7. What is my mystery number? Let's go through this one. I'm thinking of a number. I divided by 5, I added 2, and I got -7. And so I have to work backwards to figure out what my mystery number was. The first thing that you're going to undo is that adding of 2. Which means you're going to minus 2. That brings me to, like Dylan said, -9. Then that -9, instead of dividing by 5, I'm going to undo it, and I'm going to multiply by 5. And -9 multiplied by 5 is -45. This last 2, I purposely wrote them a little differently so that you guys can remember. What does that fraction bar represent right there? Dividing. So I have a number. I divided by 3 and I subtracted 2. And I got -10. The -2. How do I undo minusing? So if I add 2 to -10, what do I get?
Oh, wait.
-8.
-8. All right. Now, I have to undo the division. What am I going to do to the -8? Multiply by 3. And what do I get? -24. Nice. Okay, next one. The last question is a little confusing because it has what that throws us off? The 2 negatives and parentheses. Okay? So the very first thing that I have to do with that question, our last question, is I have to rewrite it. So I'm going to say mystery number, I multiplied by -2, and now I know that when I minus a negative, it becomes a plus, and then it's plus 12. And it gave me 2. That was the value that it gave me. I had a number, I multiplied it by -2. Then I added 12. And again, the reason I know I added 12 is because when your eyes look at that minusing a negative, you need to immediately know that that is really the same thing as saying plus 12. And that's why I rewrote it like this. So what is the first thing that I'm going to undo? So the first thing I undo is that plus 12. I'm going to work backwards. I'm going to take 2 and I'm going to minus 12. 2 minus 12 is negative 10. And then negative 10, instead of multiplying by negative 2, what am I going to do? Divide by negative 2. And what is negative 10 divided by negative 2?
Positive 5.
Positive 5. That's exactly right. Our mystery number. And we know that our mystery number, in order to find it, you undo what's being done. Solving two-step equations is exactly the same thing as solving one-step equations. The difference is that you're going to undo the last operation first and then the first one. So let me repeat that so that you guys absorb it. You're going to undo the last operation first and then the first one. I like to talk and refer to this as the last in, first out principle. The last thing you do is the first you undo. Last in, first out. And you always refer back to the order of operations. If you know you multiply, divide, and then add, subtract, then to undo, the last thing you would have done would have been the adding, subtracting, and then the multiplying, dividing. So the steps, if you guys are all about steps, because I know sometimes steps help us get organized. First, you add or subtract to isolate the variable term. Remember, the word term is the parts of an expression that are separated by addition and subtraction. So you add or subtract to get the variable term first by itself. Then you multiply or divide to solve, and then you check. For example, let's take 3x plus 5 is equal to negative 16. Who is the number that is my mystery number? X. What did you do to x to get negative 16? You multiplied by 3 and then added 5. What's the first thing that I need to undo? The first thing I need to do is that addition, which means I need to subtract 5. So negative 16 minus 5 is negative 21. So I rewrite what doesn't change. 3x is now equal to negative 21. The process of writing down minus 5 on the left side of the equal sign and minus 5 on the right side of the equal sign is a way to organize your thoughts. That's what it is. Even though most of you can probably do this in your head, working backwards, you need to be able to see what you're doing. I need to be able to see your thinking. So you're going to minus 5 on the left, you're going to minus 5 on the right. Now you ask yourself, okay, x. In order to get that x by itself, I have to undo what is being done. And what is being done to x as you see it? It's being multiplied. And how do I undo that? Divide by 3. And so when I divide by 3, you get x is negative 7. And you can always check your work by plugging it back in. 3 times negative 7 is negative 21, plus 5 is negative 16. Okay, we're going to try little by little. 2x plus 4 gave me 14.